the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
To be improved off of last year, and your right tackle will be better and get significantly better throughout the season. So I think tackle is going to be better. The interior line, I mean, that's tough. I will say Spraggins, even though he was all SEC, I thought he was solid, not great this year. Cooper Mays was really good. Carrick was serviceable, was his best, I think, since he's been at UT. I can see reasons for optimism on the offensive line. They do have some portal options. It's going to be hard to sort of get the offensive line all on the same page because they're replacing so many guys. But yeah, you are right. They can't be relying on tight ends to be in max protect because that just limits everything that Josh Heupel wants to do. And I think he was already behind the 8 ball based on some of the counters that he saw on the defensive side, on opponent's defensive side. So, but you cannot corner him in that way. That offensive line's got to certainly be better. And Nico, I mean, we're going into the second year with Nico as a starter, and I mean, he didn't play like an NFL high draft pick this past year. A lot of it wasn't his fault, but like he's here, you got to maximize what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing max protect and sending 2, maybe 3 receivers out in a route at the most, you're not maximizing what he has. And Nico needs to run.
Yes.
I know this has been a debate throughout, and I've been on both sides of it. He's. I mean, we saw it in the Citrus Bowl. He ran; it was very effective. We saw it in the playoff game, Ohio State. He ran
Georgia
it well.
too.
Yeah, so maybe it's got to be communicated more. In certain situations, in certain games, you need to set your brain to run when needed.
You saw Milton at Tuscaloosa, right? Like when he started doing option stuff, like that's the reason Tennessee was like, Alabama was like, I don't want to tackle Joe Milton. Like Joe Milton's built like Cam Newton. I don't want to tackle him. And he was just like, why aren't you running more? Like it was just one of those things. Yeah.
You can understand the calculus of it, especially early on. Like you want to see what Nico has and you don't want him to get hurt. You don't want him to blow out his knee or something against UTEP or whatever.
But you have 3 scholarship quarterbacks now. Like you only had 1 last year. This year you have 3.
And here's the thing, and so you can make a case where you say, well, you got to the playoff. If Nico wasn't healthy, you wouldn't have gotten to the playoff this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like you have him, use him. So I think we've crossed on now. He's started for a full season. You're going to the next season. Like utilize what you have. And really, I'll say this kind of from a fan perspective, and maybe just from a coach's perspective too. The guy's making like $2 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mean to be, harsh or whatever, but you're paying $2 million a year. Like, use everything that he has.
I mean, this is it. Like, he's either going to the NFL draft or it's like portal because it's 2 years of just not great play, right? Like, this is the year. This is the make or break year. There's no point in holding anything back with Nico Iamaleava.
And I think he's better when he runs. Yes, he could get hurt, but anybody can get hurt. He's better when he runs and takes some contact. And he's just harder to defend if he's doing that.
I mean, it's just he's a better player. Like in this offense, I think you just need a mobile guy. Like I think you saw like Hendon Hooker the best year. Like when you're number 1 on offense, like Hendon Hooker took off all the time in the big games. Like at the Florida game, the Alabama game. Like he was. It just I don't think it works without his legs. If you are not making defenses respect him running and just taking off and things aren't there quickly, I don't think this offense can be what it needs to be. Like he has to run. There's just no way around it.
Hendon Hooker, we come to find out now, was the best suited quarterback for this offense that you could have.
Yeah.
Joe Milton, I would argue, is a better pro style quarterback. He did not fit this offense. I think you can see with the Patriots now, that looks pretty good. Nico at times this last year, I thought he fits a different style offense. I'm not sure about that now though, because when he would run, you could see him fitting in this offense. When he didn't, you kind of thought the opposite. So, we'll see, but they've got to use him for what he has.
100%. It's a gigantic year. There's no point in holding anything back with Nico this year. Like, I just think that you might as well, see what, like, you just can't play scared. And I think they were playing scared with Nico a lot last year, which I understood. Like, you were still with a walk-on backup and you're trying to get to the playoff, this, that, and the other. I just don't think, and next year, to put a bow on it here, Adam, like Heupel, to get to the playoff in 2025, Heupel will have to win a game he has not won yet at Tennessee. He's raised the floor in a lot of ways, but he hasn't beaten Georgia. You get Georgia at home early. You're 0-4 at this point. Haven't scored in the second half the last 2 years. You got to win at Gainesville. It's been a house of horrors continued on with Heupel in Gainesville. Haven't won there. And then at Tuscaloosa, where you actually have played well both times in Tuscaloosa. You should have won in 23. If you just convert one of those red zone trips from a field goal to a touchdown, I think you're up to 3 scores. Alabama doesn't come out with that kind of just fight and ready to go, like the ball back. Like, it's a little bit different to go into the locker room down 10 points versus 21. And Tennessee was right there to put them in a big hole early on. And I think you can win at Tuscaloosa, but you have to win one of the 3. There's no way around it. And to win one of those 3 games that you haven't won yet, it's just Nico's got to be a Heisman type guy. Like, it's just he has to be the 2 million guy that you brought in 2 years ago. There was a lot of training wheel stuff this past year, which I understand. But, like, you've got George McIntyre. You got a true freshman 4-star coming in here. You've got Jake Merklinger, who's now been in the system for 2 years. He's a 4-star. Like, you can't play, like, I can't get Nico hurt. Like, this has to be all gas, no brakes. Like, shout out to Gas Pipe, Gas and More. But, like, that's how it has to be. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, and there are so many unknowns in the schedule. I mean, you mentioned 3 knowns there, but wait, Florida, I think, is at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So
end of November, yeah.
Is that going to be a top 25 Florida team? Because it could be, or is that going to be, hey, we're firing Billy Napier in a week?
Yeah,
type of Florida team.
That's what
we
you
don't
hope.
know. Georgia's early. It's at home, which is good, which makes that thing, I think, at least seem winnable. But it hasn't been so far. You're right. Winning at Tuscaloosa, I think, is doable because it's Kalen DeBoer. That's why. And right now, Alabama's got bigger questions than Tennessee. I mean, they some people think they're a top 5 team. Some people think they're barely a top 25 team. I think they're probably somewhere in between the two. But you don't know about the schedule because they have the same schedule as last year, but like Oklahoma ended up being a mediocre team. Well, now they have a quarterback, John Mateer. So is that, and they were good on defense. So is that going to be a top 25 team, like a legit top 25 team coming to Knoxville? Like we don't know. There's, is Vanderbilt going to be competitive? Like they were this past season, or are they going to be like a 3-9 type Vanderbilt? Like, I just use those as a couple of examples that you can't necessarily say, well, all the wins that were last year are going to be wins again, and then you've just got to win these big games. I think there's going to be some unknowns in there because people are reloading through the transfer portal, and that's why Tennessee has to reload through the transfer portal because nothing is guaranteed now, and you can go from playoff team to 8-4 in a snap of the finger, or you can go 8-4 to a playoff team the opposite way, which a team like an LSU, I'm sure, feels like they can do. And so for all the teams that have made portal moves and have probably upped their stock in this portal window, that could push a team like Tennessee out of it. Because let's say 3 or 4 teams make the playoff out of the SEC. Well, for a new team to get in, another team's got to be put out. And I think a lot of people see Tennessee stock as not dropping, but just slipping a little bit based on all the experience they lost.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.